Hi, and welcome to Studio SN. My name is Sara Naumann. Today we're going to be combining acrylic paint with stamping techniques. Acrylic paint is a craft staple, and more stampers are incorporating paint into our card making. And today I'm going to show you how to create a background with paint and also how to do some rubber stamping with paint. And the paint that I'm using today is from Ranger. This is part of their Distress line, and these are their Distress paints. And the most notable thing about them is their ability to react with water. Like everything else in the Distress line, that's one of its properties. I have to say though, I really like these for two other reasons. And number one is the color. Their color palette is beautiful. And the other thing that I really appreciate about Ranger is the quality of color, whether it's wet or dry, so that you know you're going to get a really beautiful color and a really nice coverage when it's dry, as well as just looking pretty in the bottle. The other reason that I really like these is for the dabber top, and this makes applying paint to your stamp a zillion times easier than trying to get paint out of a tube or a bottle and putting it onto your stamp. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, let's start with our background. And for this, you're going to need your craft sheet, and I'm going to make my background green. Now, the first thing I want to do is shake up the bottle really, really well. And you can hear that pin or that ball rattling in there. That's going to tell me that it's all shaken up. So then I just make a nice big circle on my craft sheet, just tapping that on there. And I need a little bit of water, so I'm going to spray some on with my mister. I don't need a whole lot. The more water I use, the more transparent the paint will be. So then I'm going to take my cardstock, and this is just a slight off-white cardstock, not really tan or yellow, but just a little off-white. And I just dip this in, swirl it around, come back, add more, twist it around, and lift it up every now and then to make sure that I've got all of the areas covered. And I like to leave a little bit of white space in there too, because I think it makes a nice contrast. Now I'm going to clean up my craft sheet just quickly so that I can set my piece back down again. And I'm going to use my paint bottles as my anchors. And again, come back with my mister bottle. And I could either spray this directly onto my painted piece, but I'm going to squirt a bunch of it into the palm of my hand and then flick it into the wet paint. This is a trick that I learned from Tim Holtz, actually. So the reason that it's good to use this technique rather than just spraying is because you're going to get really big water drops instead of a fine mist. And you can probably start to see that lightening up already. So all of the areas that I've got big water droplets on are starting to lighten. And then what I'm going to do is let that dry. You can also hit it with a heat gun if you want to. But again, I'm going to come back, move this out of the way, mop up my watery mess here, and set this aside. Now the next thing I want to do is stamp with my paint. So I'm going to bring in another piece of cardstock and my stamp. This is a stamp from Hot Off the Press's Flower Silhouettes stamp collection. They're really nice big silhouette images which work perfectly with paint. And I've got it mounted onto my acrylic block. This technique works beautifully with acrylic stamps. I don't recommend doing it with your wood-mounted stamps simply because no matter what paint you use to stamp with, you always want to clean off your stamp immediately afterward, because dried paint on a stamp, especially a rubber stamp, it's just really difficult, sometimes even impossible to clean off. So you want to make sure that that's cleaned really easily. And these you can just put into water and it'll wash right off. Now the center of the flower I'm coloring with blue, and this is the salty ocean. And you can see how easily I can just dab that on. Now I got a little bit of extra blue here, so I'll just go over it with a little bit more green. And then I have my stamp all painted. So then I can just turn it over and stamp it onto my cardstock and lift. And I have a really pretty image ready to be used as my card focal. And this does not take very long to dry at all. In fact, it will be dry by the time you're done watching this video. So let me bring back in my finished card, and you can see that I've matted this onto hot pink cardstock, and I added a little stamped C'est La Vie down here. And this is a wood stamp from Scarlet Empress. And it's one that I like because it adds just a pretty little script effect on here. Now you'll notice that the script is overlapping just a little bit on that bottom leaf, which was completely unintentional on my part. I had planned for it to have a little bit more space there, but misjudged my stamping placement, and actually I like it a lot more. So it was a happy accident. So I've stamped that on here, and then this background, again, you'll notice that I kept a lot of the white on there, matted this onto the hot pink cardstock, and I chose the pink because in little bits, little doses next to that blue and green, it really provides a nice contrast. This is just a bit of light blue silk ribbon, which has been knotted and wrapped around and then taped on the back for security. Now this part I've mounted up with foam tape, just so you don't get a buckle with that ribbon on there. It's not very thick or bulky ribbon, but I always like to mount my focals up on foam tape when I put them over ribbon, just so you don't have that extra little bump in there if there is any. Just gives it a little bit more dimension on there too. So this is how easy it is to use acrylic paints for both your background as well as stamping your focal image. I hope you enjoyed today's segment. For more inspiration, please do stop by my website at saranaumann.com. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.